What's up guys, Kevin here from KevsPicks.com, and in this video I'm going to go over my DraftKings NFL Week 6 picks. Before we get into the video, just wanted to mention Fantasy Labs. If you guys don't have an account over there, highly recommend you check them out. I'll leave my link in the YouTube description below. The best DFS tools out there in my opinion, and I also do exclusive videos over there for members only, so make sure you check that out. Let's get right into my Week 6 picks. All right, so again, for this week's video, I'm just going to run through the players that I like on Fantasy Labs, look at their game logs, and just kind of talk about each player this way. So starting off, we got my quarterback, Drew Brees. I'll talk about who I'm going to stack him up with when we get to the wide receivers. Brees is 7,200. He's at home playing against the Lions. We've got a total at 50 in this game. The Saints are 4.5-point favorites, expected to score around 27 points, according to the implied team total. He'll be decently owned, 13 to 16%, but I don't think we have to really worry about ownership. He's not going to be too crazy high. And if we look at his game log here, you can see pretty solid start to the year, 15, 25, 20, and 19 DraftKings points. Faced a couple decent defenses, nothing too special, but the Lions, I would say, have about an average defense, but anytime we can get Drew Brees at home, we can see his only home game this year, 25 DraftKings points. If we look towards last year, 16, we had a 13 against Detroit, which is kind of worrisome. He did throw the ball 44 times in that game. But then you look at some other games, the Rams, 36 DraftKings points, Broncos, 26, Seahawks, 20, as far as I can go down right now because of the recording software. But Drew Brees always plays pretty well at home. And he's always throwing the ball quite a bit. He can always put up a big DraftKings score. So I like him in this matchup at home with a very high total and as a favorite here against Detroit. 70 to 200 is not a bad price at all. So I'll take Drew Brees, and we'll talk about a stack here in a second. But first, let's move to running back. And this is kind of more of a risky running back play. I think last week I gave out more of an obvious running back play. So I wanted to give out a little more of a risky pick. I won't have crazy exposure to Duke Johnson, but I do like him quite a bit, so I'll probably have him in maybe 15% of my lineups. He's 5,100 this week, so his salary is rising. You can see he started the year off 4,600, went down to 39. Now he's all the way up to 5,100, but I like the matchup here in Houston with a very high total as well. 47 points here for the total. Cleveland isn't expected to score too many points. Their implied team total is 18.5 points, but I think they'll go over that. I like Cleveland to cover here. I like them to go over their implied team total of 18.5 with Hogan at quarterback. I think they're a much better team. Duke Johnson, 5,100. If we look at his game log, he is playing like a running back that should be around that price, maybe even a bit more expensive. 11, 22, 21, and 17 DraftKings points. So averaging close to 20 DraftKings points over his last 3 games. He's not getting too many rushes out of the backfield. You can see here 4, 2, 4, 6, but he's turning those into quite a few yards, a couple touchdowns. But it's in the passing game where he gets a lot of looks, 6 targets, 7 targets. If we go back to game 1 here, 5, 6, 7, 10, and 3 targets. Some touchdowns mixed in there. He was 18% owned last week. I wouldn't be surprised if that's down quite a bit, or at least a little bit. He's projected 2 to 4% here on Fantasy Labs. I wouldn't be surprised if he's under 10. I would guess a little higher than 4%, but you never know. There's lots of options out there at running back. He could be pretty low owned because his price has gone up, but I still like him out of the backfield there. If they're expected to be trailing, they're 10-point underdogs currently. So he might be getting a lot of passing down looks and a lot of looks from behind, even on maybe even first and second down if they're trailing in the second half. So I like him quite a bit, 5,100, more of a GPP play. I wouldn't touch him in cash, but do like him in GPPs, even though he might be maybe a little too expensive in some people's eyes. I think he's a pretty good price at 5,100. On to wide receiver here. So first, I guess we'll talk about the stack with Brees. I'm going with his number 1 receiver, Michael Thomas, 7,300. Might be somewhat of a popular play, but I still really like it at the price, 7,300 for Brees' number 1 is really good in any situation, especially here at home with a total at an over-under here at 50 points, and the Saints expected to score around 28 points. So 7,300 is not a bad price at all. Michael Thomas is a beast. He hasn't done too much this year. If we look at his 4 games, started off a bit slow. 2 very solid games his last 2 times out, 21 and 22 DraftKings points. And that was with the Saints not having to throw the ball a ton in the second half of either of those games. So we could have put up bigger games. And if we look towards last year's game log here, 34 DraftKings points, 34 DraftKings points, 24, 26. So he does have those really big DraftKings scoring games in him. And if we look at his targets, 8+ targets in each game. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 8 or more in this game and put up a nice DraftKings score. So I really like that stack. Breeze to Thomas, that's going to be my top stack of the week. And then my secondary receiver here, Jamison Crowder, 4,000. This is a guy I really like in cash and GPPs. I think he's a little too cheap for his situation here at home against San Fran. 11-point favorites, a decent total at 45.5. So the Redskins are actually expected to score around 28 points. So very high team total for them. He is basically their number 2 receiver, although he hasn't really been getting too many looks. A decent amount of looks, I guess, just hasn't really put up much production. 7, 5, 6, and 1 target over the course of this season. But if we go back to last year, you can see he had a ton of double-digit DraftKings scoring games, a lot of games over 20 DraftKings points. And the coaches were talking about getting him the ball more, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game where they throw to him a little more. And $4,000 is just way too cheap. If we look at his game log and his price in the past couple of years, he was down around 4,300 a little bit last year, but then got up to 5,800. And so far this year, he started off at 56. Cheapest he got was 4,900 in weeks 2 and 3, and now he's down to 4,000 in arguably the best matchup of the year. With probably their highest implied team total. So I really like that play, 4,000. I'll be throwing him probably in my cash lineup and for sure in a lot of GPP lineups. Next up here, we got tight end Kyle Rudolph. The Vikings are going to be without Diggs, so Rudolph probably becomes the number 2 receiver there in Minnesota behind Adam Thielen. You would guess that Rudolph will get quite a few looks. He's probably guess that Thielen might get maybe double-digit targets, and Rudolph should get, I would guess, at least 7 targets. If we look back to last year, he had a lot of games with 10 or more. We can see 10, 12, 8, 10, 9, 15 targets. This year, it's been a little less, 3, 6, 2, 4, and 9 targets last week. But with Diggs out, I'm expecting that number to go up. They're playing Green Bay, so Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers can put up some points. The implied team total here for Minnesota is 21 points. So they're expected to score some points. And like I said, with Rudolph being the number 2 target in Minnesota, most likely, he'll probably get the second most targets is what I'm guessing. 3,800 is pretty dirt cheap. He's a good receiver, gets his red zone looks as well. So I like him quite a bit at that price for 3,800. There are some more expensive tight ends that I'll probably try to throw in some lineups as well. But when I want to spend down, Rudolph is one of the guys I'm going to be looking at. There's a couple other guys as well, but I think Rudolph's my favorite cheap tight end of the week. And then on defense here, I've got a value defense. Most of the defenses I'll be playing will be around the 33 and above mark, 3,300 and above. But for a value defense, I like the Bucks at 2,600. So if I need to save some money on defense, I'll probably be looking towards the Bucks. They're on the road in Arizona. The total is a bit higher here, 45.5. They are 1-point favorites, but Arizona is expected to score around 22 points. Their implied team total is around 22. But I still like the Bucks at 2,600. Carson Palmer's thrown 5 picks already this year. Hasn't looked too good. The Bucks are getting some defensive guys back from injuries. They looked good last week against the Patriots. They looked really good in week 2 against the Bears. A couple bad weeks there against the Vikings and Giants, but I do think they are an above average defense. I think they'll start playing a little better than they have been to start the year. And 2,600, I like them for a cheap defense. For expensive defenses, there's a number of defenses up there that I like. I like the Ravens. I like the Falcons. A couple other expensive defenses. But again, if I'm going below 3,000, the Bucks will probably be the top defense that I play under 3,000. So that wraps up my NFL Week 6 picks for DraftKings. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do me a big favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the videos if you haven't already. And good luck this week. Talk to you guys later.